Let's go.
Get your copy of Fire. It's definitely a must-read. If you enjoy hood books, this one is it. Just like the title of the book, it's officially Fire. Get it on Amazon, paperback or Kindle.
Peace. This is the enemy's public, and I am Bro.Nasir. I hope everyone's having a lovely afternoon. This afternoon, we're celebrating the brother Malcolm X 99th born day. Today, Malcolm X would have turned 99 years old. Almost an entire century. And I'm going to, in celebration of Malcolm X, a brother who stood and acted on behalf of our people in a very relentless manner. Malcolm X came from humble, harsh realities and beginnings. You know, the streets had him for a while. What's out there in this atmosphere, in this world, had him for a while. And then, you know, he went to prison and he got a life-giving teaching that transformed his life. He received a life-giving teaching from the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, and that changed his life, and it changed who he was, and it changed who he became to us. And out of everything that we celebrate, my humble sentiment is Malcolm X is worthy of our respect. He's worthy of us paying homage to him. And he's worthy of us celebrating his life. Now, I'm going to share my screen and start off with a brother paying homage to our good brother, Malcolm X, and the things that he said concerning Malcolm X is on point. Let me put my fair use up here, and then I'm going to share my screen and get into this. We're going to start off with the Black Authority. I'm sorry, Professor Black Truth. Same kind of good brother, though. Professor Black Truth. I'm going to start off with Professor Black Truth. I got them mixed up for a second because they're the same kind of good brother.
Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the professor, and this is the moment of truth.
We want freedom by any means necessary. We want justice by any means necessary. We want equality by any means necessary. We want it now, or we don't think anybody should have it.
Legends aren't born, they're made. They develop, grow, and change over time, and how they are at the beginning bears no resemblance to what they become at the end. Like making a sword, they start off as rough ore, a hunk of rock rising from the dirt, but with greatness within them. A legend must be tested and tempered. They must go through a crucible repeatedly, endure the blows from the world as they are hammered into shape in a process of purification and strengthening. And when they emerge from the flames of their trials by fire, they've gone from stone to steel. That's what happened with Malcolm. Now, this isn't going to be a retrospective on his life. We already know that. What this is a reminder of how Malcolm lived his life, because there's a significant lesson in that for all of us. The story of Malcolm X is deeply rooted in the hearts of all true Black people, not just here, but around the world. Though it must be said that he holds special significance for Black Americans, not just because his bloodline goes back to the killing fields of the American South like ours does, but because Malcolm's journey is our journey. He began life as Malcolm Little, on the streets here in the nickname Detroit Red. Upon being introduced to Islam, he took the name Malcolm X, and finally, he christened himself El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. History is crucial. As Malcolm said, of all our studies, it is history that is best qualified to reward our research. You cannot truly know yourself without knowing your past, and Malcolm was certainly a master student of history. But even history, as indispensable and empowering as it is, has its limits. History can tell you where you've been, but it cannot tell you which way you should go next. History can tell you what you've done, but it cannot tell you who you are. You have to look inward for that. Malcolm was truly a self-made man. By that I mean his life was a testament to a man who was determined to define himself on his own terms. He didn't allow his oppressor or anyone else to tell him who he was. He instead sought that one out for himself, and then told the whole world who he was. A man who had the courage to tell the truth in a world run by liars. His was a living example of how Black people are supposed to go about doing things. Never one to suffer fools gladly, Malcolm X called out the same enemies within that we have to deal with today. Long before the new voices of Black media were even born, Malcolm X was already identifying and calling out the phony Black misleadership class.
The Negro leaders are famous as apologists. If you recall, one of the most famous Negro leaders in 1959 was asked by you about the Black Muslim movement. And he said he knew nothing about it. And the next moment you flashed a picture on the screen with him shaking hands with me. So if you will recall. So this is their policy. This is their attitude.
Salute to my brother Hurricane JW. Thank you for tapping in, good brother. Salute. Yes, Malcolm X and Red Fox were good friends. They were good friends.
Or their reaction. They never know what's going on in the Negro community.
Now, doesn't that perfectly describe all these pulpit pimps and phony activists and these media mouthpieces who are on white power's
Greetings to the sister Sharon Walker. Thank you for tapping in. Appreciate it.
Payroll? Malcolm never let these bought and paid for puppet misleaders ever speak for him. And he wanted his people to understand they better not let these sellouts speak for them either. One of the things that bootlicks are always trying to do is to convince us that we need to look for allies, a perpetual never-ending search for other people to validate us, which is just code for non-Black people who will hopefully help us. That's been a treadmill to nowhere, which was the entire point of doing it. Well, Malcolm declared 60 years ago what he thought about running around looking for allies.
Instead of you and me running around here seeking allies in our struggle for freedom, in the Irish neighborhood or the Jewish neighborhood or the Italian neighborhood, we need to seek some allies among people who look something like we do. And once we get their allies, it's time out for you and me to stop running away from the wolf right into the arms of the fox, looking for some kind of help.
So you see, the sentiment that we have something better than friends, we've got family, that's not new at all. Malcolm dismissed the idea of desperately seeking allies a long time ago. He understood that whole looking for allies shtick, it's meant to play on Black people's insecurities, to get black people running around, sticking up for everyone else in the hope that these other groups will reciprocate and stick up for us. We're still waiting. But by far, Malcolm reserved his harshest words for the enforcement arm of white supremacy, the police. People think that the persistent murders that the police carry out using so-called no-knock warrants is a new thing. It's not. Malcolm called it out 60 years ago.
The recent law that they passed that gives the police the permission to walk in anybody's house without knocking is an anti-Negro law. In blunt terms, it's just an anti-Negro law.
Before the uprisings of 2020, before Black Lives Matter, Malcolm was calling out police murders of Black Americans, and he also warned that unless the government stopped carrying out and promoting these state-sanctioned killings, then they would not be able to control the possible consequences. And those consequences would prove global. And he also said that our resistance would inspire people around the world to copy us.
Nowadays, you're not going to have race riots anymore. You'll have a race war. The day of race riots are outdated. A riot is something that's contained to a certain area. Nowadays, any kind of eruption like that takes place, you'll find that it will have a chain reaction. It will pop up everywhere, and it won't be limited to this continent. Any effort today that is made to bring massive retaliation against the black population of this country, you will find people who look like the oppressors, also realizing how it feels to be the victim of mass retaliation in other countries.
The white media was completely shocked and confused when they saw how our uprisings and protests of 2020 spread like shockwaves around the world, and how people all over the planet were copying what we did. But we weren't surprised at all. And had Malcolm still been alive, he wouldn't have either. He predicted all of this because he understood white supremacy is a global system, and that there's a lot of people in a lot of different places who are sick of it too. And as for how to stop these murders and repression by the state, Malcolm had the answer to that one too.
My brothers and sisters, we have to put a stop to this. And it will never be stopped until we stop it ourselves.
Malcolm also talked about what the black media calls leaderless resistance. That you would have groups of black people coming together, but there wouldn't be any leaders for them. And they would seem almost invisible because no matter how much you look for them, you can't find them, and yet they're there.
And Negroes are banding together.
Banding together in what kind of movements?
Different kinds of movements, all kinds of movements, and they remain almost invisible. They remain almost unknown, but yet they are there. When I say invisible, I mean invisible in the sense that their existence is unknown, and no matter how much you try and track them down, you can't find them.
Malcolm's was the kind of courage that it took to break the chains of chattel slavery and to snatch the white mob's nooses from their hands. His was the kind of courage it took to change the condition of our people, and we had better rediscover that kind of courage if we hope to preserve ourselves. Malcolm was already...
Peace to my brothers, Dre Cobb's Music and Voodoo Child. Thanks for tapping in, good brothers.
Already living and practicing all the essential...
Salute, thank you for tapping in. Kaiser Soze.
Principles of Black empowerment. And that is why we will and must honor him. Where we're trying to go, Brother Malcolm had already been. We follow in the footsteps of a true moral and spiritual titan. Today was the day that our warrior scholar, our shining prince, was born. As you start this day, I ask you to rededicate yourself to the principles that Malcolm lived his life by and gave his life to protect. Not because that's what Malcolm would have wanted, but because he understood that's what his people needed. We salute you, Brother Malcolm. May we prove ourselves worthy of your sacrifice and prosper by your example. Good day and be one.
Now we're going to go to another presentation by Professor Black Truth, remembering Malcolm X. This is last year's tribute to our brother, ancestor.
Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the professor, and this is the moment of truth.
Never let your enemy tell you how many of you there are. Never let the man that you're against form your opinions. This is the trick that's played on everyone who's oppressed. When you have a revolution in the country, the first thing you take over is the radio. And then you start telling the people, everybody, the war is over. And so all of them surrender. No, they believe that thing right there. And once they take that over, they start telling you where you are and where they are, and you fall right in line. It's plain thought control. The majority of the American people aren't segregationists. That the majority of the American people aren't imperialists. But the government is, the structure is, the power faction is. So how then do all the majority go along with it? Because those who sit in power over the television, over the radio, and over the press is constantly telling those who are the masses how free they are, and how this they are, and how that they are.
May 19th is one of our most solemn and important holy days. It's the day that Malcolm X, aka El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, was born. You know a man is truly great when his esteem and following is greater after his life than it was during it. Malcolm was not merely an extraordinary intellect and moral leader, he was also a truly effective advocate for his people. I say that because Malcolm was eminently quotable. Dr. King was an excellent orator, but his prose tended to be soaring rhetoric. And fine a speech as he delivered, oftentimes you could only remember small parts of it. But with Malcolm, you tended to remember it all.
Yes, sir.
That's why wherever he went, the people always called out, "Make it plain." The truth is not flowery prose or soaring rhetoric. It is understood by all. What is often missing is someone who can crystallize what's on the tip of everyone's tongues. Malcolm was an expert at that. His skill and efficiency in delivering his message was better than men twice his age with 4 times his education. Any fool can speak their mind, but it takes a special kind of person to speak the truth. When Malcolm engaged in a debate, he never lost.
Never.
First, because he made sure to get his own position straight.
Never.
He didn't simply argue with someone from a place of raw emotion. Part of what the Nation of Islam taught is to make sure that whatever position you're expressing, it must be rooted in fact and not opinion. The enemy will try to wrap you up in words and made-up facts, mostly from sources that he himself controls. You have to know what your beliefs are based on. And you have to have the intellectual courage to be able to look at your enemy's position so that you can dismantle them. Part of mastering a particular area of study is being able to explain it in simple terms. That's a key ingredient in crafting arguments meant to get your points across and be persuasive. When Malcolm X was in a debate, it wasn't a debate at all. It was a master teacher showing his conceited opponent everything they didn't know.
Yes, sir.
His arguments were unimpeachable. He didn't give just facts. He showed how his facts fit into the real world, and he did it at a level that his opponents simply couldn't match. It was the difference between surface knowledge and root knowledge.
Yes, sir.
Best of all, Malcolm made it look so easy. He learned his position, and he also learned the talking points that his opponents would try to use, and he made certain that he was ready. I tried in so many ways to learn from our Grandmaster teacher, Malcolm. He's the reason why, even after all these years, I still take as much time as I can with each and every video essay that I do. I want to make sure that what I say is not only clear, but also makes points that you can use and take out into the world. Malcolm is not here physically, but every time you have a brother or sister who utterly shuts down some white supremacist, who says what you were thinking better than you feel you could have said it, Malcolm lives. Malcolm was an autodidact. That means that he taught himself. When you make it a point to dive into a particular subject and keep at it, Malcolm lives. Before anyone in the new black media said it, before we were even born, Malcolm was telling everybody, don't trust the white media. He was telling you that your enemy owns that television you watch and everything you see on it. Your enemy owns that newspaper and everything you read in it. Your enemy owns that radio and everything you hear from it. Your enemy owns every single so-called black leader you know because you didn't choose them. The key to white power rests on the lies that it tells, but also the organized violence that it uses to force black people to live within the confines that it sets up. So we as black people, as the people who built this country and gave the world a renewed sense of humanity and self-determination, we have a special role to play in restoring justice to this planet. And that starts with how we see ourselves and what we do about ourselves. Something as simple as what we call ourselves. What's that old saying? Would a rose by any other name be just as sweet? Well, Malcolm proved that it very well could be. He showed that when you define yourself, you empower yourself. One definition of power that I've often heard is that power is the ability to define yourself and to define your relationship to those around you in such a way that your definition becomes theirs. Malcolm Little defined himself as Malcolm X, and then defined himself again as El Hajj Malik al-Shabazz. And when he did, white power had to address him by what he said to call himself. What we do at the individual level is the most basic and the most important act of self-determination. It may sound small because you're only talking about one person, but when Malcolm went on television and he spoke with overwhelming intelligence and eloquence, he made having the last name X cool. It became something to be taken seriously because Malcolm defined it. He became the living embodiment of the very ideals that he expressed. This man who had blinding intelligence, piercing discernment, and charisma to burn. If there was a prototype for the total intellectual and spiritual package, it was Malcolm X.
You can ask Princeton, Harvard, and Yale this. Malcolm X went on those campuses, debated the best they had, and defeated them easily.
He exercised power by defining himself. And that's why it was so important to me to start reminding the family every year when these holy days come round. Dr. Ben said that we don't need to be asking for a day, we need to take a day. And he was right. If something's important to you, then you make time for it. And you don't need any white supremacist permission to do that. In fact, it's better if you deliberately defy white power to do something that exalts and honors Black empowerment. It's like I've always told you. The law is whatever the people are willing to abide by. You have holidays that are recognized by the federal government, like Juneteenth. And
most holidays that those who celebrate, I refer to them as holidays. And if you look at how they're celebrated, so much foolishness. And the holier that they say the holidays are, the more foolishness that comes with them.
And you have other days where people take off work no matter what anybody thinks. Usually they go and get sloppy drunk or whatever. Super Bowl Sunday comes to mind, as does St. Patrick's Day. People choose what is important to them.
Even Christmas and Easter, they drink more in the name of the so-called Lord than they drink all year. Easter and Christmas. They even have the liquor wrapped up in the gift paper, bowls around them, and they drink to health in the name of the Lord, destroying their damn selves.
To them. Knowing who Malcolm was and living on his own terms, that's what was important to him.
Salute to my brother and comrade, Talk Your Talk Media, Greedy Vegan.
And you could tell it was important because he did it back when nobody else did.
Salute, peace to my brother, Big Dog Philly OG. Peace and power.
Or it was cool to change your name, to call yourself by what you want to be addressed as. And when the white media tried to make having an X as your last name a bad thing, Malcolm didn't back down, he doubled down. So let's take a lesson from our Grandmaster teacher and understand the world on our terms.
Now, the X means the unknown, and your quantities are unknown. That's what that means. The X means that your quantities, your information, your knowledge is unknown and infinite. And that really disturbs those who are against our people to see a man like Malcolm X. His quantities are unknown. He got rid of the slave name, and he had the worst name for a man to have with his stature. Malcolm Little, nothing little about the brother. His last name should have been Giant, but that's what he was among men.
Don't let the white media tell you who you are, and don't let them tell you who Malcolm was. The white media's entire job is to control people through lies. That's why they always try to set up some phony rivalry between this or that black figure, be it Booker T and W.E.B. Du Bois or Malcolm and Martin. While they may have occasionally differed with one another, sometimes even on issues of principle, they were hardly at one another's throats. See, the white media takes black people who are on the same side and tries to invent an artificial fight between them, some made-up antagonism. This is a clever way to try to pit black people against each other. But no,
I'm going to show an example of that on the next clip. Some people, they'll get one of our brothers and our sisters, and they would ask them these questions to pit one against the other. That is the trick of the media, the multi-ethnic destruction in America, media.
But notice how the white media never tried to make a rivalry between Dr. King and, say, FBI agent Elder Michaud. That sellout was literally taking orders from J. Edgar Hoover, and he attacked Dr. King every chance he got. But the white media never told black folks that they have to choose between Dr. King and Elder Michaud. One of Malcolm's greatest gifts to his people was to popularize mind control. And by that I mean controlling your own mind.
Yes, sir.
Thinking and acting for yourself. It's hard in the beginning. As human beings, we're social creatures. There's a lot of good things to be said about being a social creature, but there's also a lot of disadvantages to it too. Being part of the herd means mediocrity. The herd can only achieve a base level of success because the herd has to have a level that everyone can do. But if you want to elevate yourself, then you have to break away from the herd. Now, when that happens, there's going to be someone who inevitably comes along with a rope or a stick, maybe some members of the herd who try to drag you back in line. They don't want you to give the rest of the herd any ideas. They don't want you to show what's possible. Malcolm taught us not to chase the mirage of alliances. All these other groups cannot claim to be oppressed. They are perhaps occasionally mistreated, but none of them can claim to be oppressed. The Germans, the Irish, the Jews, the Italians, and these other groups who say that they've been oppressed, they didn't need a 13th, 14th, or 15th Amendment simply to establish that they could be free, at least free from chains on a plantation, or to basically establish that they are citizens. They didn't need that. And they didn't need a Voting Rights Act or a Civil Rights Act. Those things were only necessary because this country refuses to stop its violent repression and persecution of Black Americans. So when someone tells you that we owe something to an Abraham Lincoln or an LBJ, you tell them take those lies somewhere else. When you have some white Democrat telling you that they're on our side, or some white Republican telling you that Republicans supported the Voting Rights Act,
more like Dixiecrat and Democrat. They're Democrats. They're demons that's full of crap.
Or Abe Lincoln was a Republican, you tell them that black people have been mass incarcerated and mass impoverished every day we've been in this country. And none of these laws or these white politicians have changed one iota of that.
Salute to my good brother, Brown Flat Power God. Salute. Thanks for tapping in.
If we were to give thanks to an LBJ or an Abe Lincoln, we would literally be giving thanks for nothing. You have too many faux white political activists who simply want us to give them a pat on the back. That way they can express some phony sympathy. Well, I'm afraid black folks can't give anyone any pats on the back because we got our hands full. I am proud to, in my own modest way, be part of that lineage of advocacy and thought that Malcolm championed so well. He did it far better than me, and that's fine. It gives me something to aspire to every day.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of today, I want you to take some moment today to give thanks to Brother Malcolm in spirit. We don't stand on the shoulders of giants. We stand on the shoulders of titans.
Today, our good brother, elder, ancestor, freedom fighter, Malcolm X, would have turned 99 years old today. He was born May 19th, 1925. And he would have turned 99 today. And he deserves our homage, our respect, and our gratitude.
And he was one of the tallest. The message, the code that he expressed was so important to him, and it was important that his people adopted as well. He didn't want us to be confused about the world or our place in it. He didn't want us chasing phantom friends or to be misled by sellout leaders. He wanted us to take the principles that we know to be true and to live by them and to be uncompromising about it. And that process begins with each and every one of us individually. When a group of people adopt a code and live by it and enforce it within their group, that becomes a law unto itself. Malcolm defined himself, and we as Black Americans have come to define what is honorable about this country. Precious little, to be sure. But everything the rest of the world thinks of as positive about the U.S. came from us. From the concept of basic human rights to how to fight for those human rights, to style, music, and personal expression, we have given to the world the greatest and longest lasting expression of revolutionary fervor that the world has ever seen.
Real talk.
Malcolm's journey was in fact a microcosm of our own, the journey of a people determined to have their freedom and their power, and who realize they have a right to stop anyone who attempts to force us to live any other way. Malcolm knew better than anyone that we have a right.
Peace. Honor to A-Not 424. Thanks for tapping in. I appreciate it.
To our share of the world and to secure our place in it by any means necessary.
Now, the next clip I'm going to play is someone asked Malcolm a question concerning our other good brother who fought in his own way, who stood and acted on our behalf in his own way, and that was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King and Martin, they met, but prior to that, you know, the brother Malcolm X was critical of Dr. King, and eventually Dr. King came around. 1966 to 68, Dr. King wasn't that 1959, 1963 Dr. King, a totally different Dr. King. But I'm going to play the next video. And this will be Malcolm X speaking.
Mr. Malcolm, what do you think of Martin Luther King?
I think that any black man.
Mind you, this is 1961. This was prior to them meeting. You know, they haven't known each other, but this was what Malcolm X had to say about Martin Luther King.
Who teaches black people to turn the other cheek and suffer peacefully after they've been turning the cheek and suffering peacefully for 400 years in a land of bondage under the most cruel, inhuman, and wicked slave master that any people have ever been under. He is doing those people an injustice, and he's a traitor to his own people. Nobody should teach the black man in America to turn the other cheek unless someone is teaching the white man in America to turn the other cheek. And no one should advocate any peaceful suffering to black people unless the white man is going to practice the same kind of peaceful suffering. What Martin Luther King is doing is disarming the black people of America of their God-given right and of their natural right. And the law of nature gives a man the right to defend himself when he's attacked. And God's law itself gives a man the right to defend himself when he's attacked. So peaceful suffering and passive resistance and all of that stuff is all right maybe in India somewhere, where the people in India outnumber the whites about 1,000,000 to 1. But here in America, when you tell, that's like an elephant sitting down on a mouse in India with Gandhi. But in America, you have the mouse now trying to sit down on the elephant, thinking that he's going somewhere, and it's absurd.
Don't you think that perhaps the idea of nonviolent resistance is a tactic which disarms the white community as much, if not more, than it does the Negro?
No, you don't disarm any white community with any by confining yourself to any particular method.
If you want freedom, then you should get freedom, like Patrick Henry said, by whatever method is necessary. If you are not willing to pay the price for freedom, you don't deserve freedom.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt you. Go on.
No, that's all right.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me that actually the basis of distinction here is a distinction of goals. Dr. King's goals are quite different from yours. He believes in integration, complete integration of society. Is that correct?
Well, that's where Dr. King is mixed up. His goal should be the solution of the problem of the black man in America. Now, not integration. Integration is the method toward obtaining that goal. And what the Negro leader has done is gotten himself wrapped up in the method and has forgotten what the goal is. The goal is the dignity of the black man in America. He wants respect as a human being. He wants recognition as a human being. Now, if integration will get him that, all right. If segregation will get him that, all right. If separation will get him that, all right. But after he gets integration and he still doesn't have this dignity and this recognition as a human being, then his problem is still not solved.
Well, isn't this exactly what Dr. King is looking towards? And that is the day when the Negro will be treated with dignity. Wasn't this, after all, the result of the Montgomery bus boycott?
No, because I don't think you can, having an opportunity to ride either on the front or the back or in the middle of someone else's bus doesn't dignify you.
Yes,
when
sir.
you have your own bus, then you have dignity. When you have your own school, you have dignity. When you have your own country, you have dignity. When you have something of your own, you have dignity. But whenever you are begging for a chance to participate in that which belongs to someone else, or use that which belongs to someone else on an equal basis with the owner, that's not dignity, that's ignorance. If I may add, for instance, people who own no factories have equal job opportunities competing against a race that owns the factories. The only way the two can have equal job opportunities is if black people have factories as well as white people have factories.
Absolutely.
And then we can employ whites or we can employ blacks, just like they can employ whites or they can employ blacks. But as long as the factories are in the hands of the whites, the housing is in the hands of the whites, the school system is in the hands of the whites, you have a situation where the blacks are constantly begging the whites, can they use this or can they use that? That's not any kind of equality of opportunity, nor does it lend toward one's dignity.
Yes, sir.
Well, would you not admit that the situation in the South today for the Negro is better than it was, let's say, 10 years ago?
No, because 10 years ago, the black man knew what his condition was. And today, because of the world revolution that's taking place all over this earth, the black man would be fighting for what he knows is his by right. But the movement on the part of King and the others has done nothing but slow down the militancy that is inherent in the nature of the black man. All over this world, people are standing up for freedom. In this country, these Negro leaders have Negroes sitting down, thinking that there's dignity towards sitting in. I might add, ma'am, how in the world?
There's no way there's dignity in a sit-in, because if you're taking a stand, you must be standing. Sitting in, I mean, just like I said, as soon as I seen Colin Kaepernick taking a knee is submission. I never believed in taking that knee. I believe if you wanted to, not pay attention to the Star Spangled Banner as they're playing, you just as you were. Don't do nothing. If you're having a conversation with a brother or sister, continue that conversation. If you're going to have some civil disobedience or whatever they call that, but taking a knee, that's like prostration to me. I can't do that.
Well, can you say, or can anyone say, that it will dignify the American Negro to beg in or wade in or plead in when the people in Hungary didn't beg in? They were freedom fighters. And they fought for their freedom. And they came to this country, and they were Hungarians. They were communists from a communist country. And right now, those Hungarian freedom fighters can get jobs that student sit-ins can't get. They can go and sleep and live in hotels that Martin Luther King himself can't live in. So, and they are recognized and respected because they're fighters, not because they're sit-inners or freedom writers.
The next video is who taught you to hate yourself from 1962, our good brother, elder, ancestor,
I don't care what
Malcolm X.
organization you belong to. We don't care how far in school you went or didn't go. We don't care what kind of job you have.
Let me run this back. Let me run this back because I was listening to this earlier, but you know, I want you all to hear this in its entirety. Now what? Pardon me, I'm experiencing a technical difficulty.
Because I am a representative of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And were it not...
Let me go back.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, to whom all praise is due, whom we forever thank for giving us the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as our leader, teacher, and guide. And I specifically, ladies and gentlemen, and brothers and sisters, open up like that because I am a representative of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And were it not for him, you and I wouldn't be here today. In order for you and me to devise some kind of method or strategy to offset some of the events or repetition of the events that have taken place here in Los Angeles recently, we have to go to the root. We have to go to the cause. Dealing with the condition itself is not enough. We have to get to the cause of it all, or the root of it all. And it is because of our effort toward getting straight to the root that people oftentimes think we're dealing in hate. But first, I would like to congratulate and give praise to the Negro, so-called Negro leaders and so-called Negro organizations. And excuse me if I say so-called, it's hard for me to just outright say Negro when I know what that word Negro really means. The person whom you have come to know as Ronald Stokes, we know him as Brother Ronald, one of the most religious persons who displayed the highest form of morals of any black person anywhere on this earth. And as one of the previous speakers pointed out who knew him, everyone who knew him had to give him credit for being a good man, a clean man, an intelligent man, and an innocent man when he was murdered. The Negro, so-called Negro organizations and leaders should be given great credit for their failure or refusal to let the white man divide them and use them one against the other during this crisis. As Reverend Wilfred Wilson pointed out, I think it was 8 years ago today that the Supreme Court handed down the desegregation decision. And despite the fact that 8 years have gone past, that decision hasn't been implemented yet. I don't have that much faith. I don't have that much confidence. I don't have that much patience. And I don't have that much ignorance if the Supreme Court, which is the highest law-making body in the country, can pass a decision that can't get even 8% compliance with in 8 years because it's for black people, then my patience has run out.
which is why at 62 years later, I look at our people crazy when they suggest to us that we should vote Democrat or Republican, vote for anyone who come to us and ask us for a vote for office. And that's the only time we see these people. They ignore us 4 years. 3.5 years later, they'll come to us promising us something that they don't intend to give us, and we fall for it every time. And any of us who do this to our people, they're traitors. They're traitors to our people to come to us and suggest that we vote for someone because we're not voting in our conscience, and we're not voting for anyone who's going to change our condition. So politics or politricks, they're a pile of tricks, and we shouldn't even it's not even our business. We shouldn't even engage in America's politics.
When black people who are being oppressed become impatient, they say that's emotional. Please, when black people who are being deprived of their citizenship, not only of their civil rights, but their human rights, become impatient, become fed up, don't want to wait any longer, then they say that's emotional.
Greetings to my sister, Goddess D of Love. Thanks for tapping in, sis. Appreciate it.
The Negro, so-called Negro leaders and organizations should be praised. They should be congratulated. They should be complimented. Because out of all of them combined, the white man has not yet found one who will play the role of Uncle Tom. But yet he has found no Tom, no puppet, no parrot who is still dumb enough in 1962 to represent the injustices that he's afflicting against our people. We don't care what your religion is. We don't care what organization you belong to. We don't care how far in school you went or didn't go. We don't care what kind of job you have. We have to give you credit for shocking the white man by not letting him divide you and use you one against the other.
This is a good teaching, very intricate and relevant to today, because we let all these ideologies 62 years later divide us. We get on platforms and we argue for hours over what this brother told us to refrain from 62 years ago. That means that it was one step forward and 2 steps back. It's not progress, brothers and sisters.
In the past, the greatest weapon the white man has had has been his ability to divide and conquer. As Jackie Robinson pointed out beautifully on the television last night, 4/5 of the world isn't white. Isn't that what Jackie said? And if 4/5 of the world is dark, how is it possible for 1/5 to rule, oppress, exploit, dominate, and brutalize the 4/5 who are in the majority? How do they do it? Divide and conquer. If I take my hand and slap you, you don't even feel it. It might sting you because these digits are separated. But all I have to do to put you back in your place is bring those digits together.
And that's just how powerful our unity can be. A slap, it may sting you because the fingers are not united. But if you unite the fingers and you make that fist, that unity that we can have, as the brother said, we can strike a mighty blow.
This is what the white man has done to you and me. He has divided us and used us one against the other. But today, thanks to Allah, you can say thanks to God or thanks to Jesus or thanks to Jehovah, whatever you want. But as a follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we have been taught to say thanks to Allah. And that's what Jesus said. Jesus called on Allah. He said, Allah, Allah, lama asabachthani. I believe what's good for Jesus is good for you. If Allah was good enough for Jesus to call upon, I think he should be good enough for you to call upon. Since the so-called Negro community has shocked the white man by resisting all efforts to divide us, I think that you and I should continue to shock him by staying and working together in unity. Despite religious, political, economic, or educational or social differences, let us remember that we are not brutalized because we're Baptists. We're not brutalized because we're Methodists. We're not brutalized because we're Muslims. We're not brutalized because we're Catholics. We're brutalized because we are black people in America. Here, your mother is being raped, and you're not supposed to be emotional. Your women, please, your women can't walk the street without some cracker putting his hands on her, then you're not supposed to be emotional. If you say that you're fed up, if you teach the Negroes who don't even know their own name. Why? Because he took it away from them. Please. 20 million black people don't even know their own language. Why? Because he took it away from them. 20 million black people who don't even know the history of their ancestors. Why? Because he took it away from them. And if you're trying to tell them how thoroughly and completely they've been robbed, he says you're teaching hate. That's something to think about.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Today you are coming out of college. You're coming out of the leading universities. You're trying to go in a good direction, but you don't know which direction to go in. And if somebody tries to take you right to the root of your problem, they say that that man's a hate teacher. If I ask why should the senators in Washington, and then again if we tell you that Negroes are being hung on the tree or being shot down illegally, unjustly, and those Negroes should do something to protect themselves, you say you're advocating violence. The white man is tricking you. He's trapping you. He doesn't call it violence when he lands troops in South Vietnam.
Yes, sir.
Please.
Yes, sir.
He doesn't call it violence when he lands troops in Berlin. When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, he didn't say get nonviolent. He said, praise the Lord, but pass the ammunition. But when someone attacks you, when someone comes at you with a club, when someone comes at you with a rope, when someone comes at you with a gun, despite the fact that you've done nothing, he tells you, suffer peacefully. Pray for those who use you despitefully.
Go ahead.
Be long-suffering. And how long can you suffer after suffering for 400 years? So I just want to clear up that little point right there, because he says that we play on your emotions. And when you turn on your television tonight, or your radio, or read the newspaper, they're going to tell you in that paper that I was playing on your emotions. Imagine you.
Which is exactly what they do today when something happened to one of our brothers and sisters. they'll play it over and over and over and over again to make us immune to seeing our people harmed and worse. And because some of our sentiment is when we hear that one of us was harmed, we just say again. We don't have no feeling. We don't have no nervous system among our people, meaning that we're supposed to feel each other's pain, but that's not our reality. A lot of us really don't give a damn about our people.
You are a second-class citizen. That's not getting emotional, it's getting intelligent. And as far as your mayor is concerned, I should say their mayor, a man named Yorty, who has been slandering the Muslims, a professional liar, who has mastered the art of using half-truths. Put it in the paper that they broke into our religious place of worship and got records that they can use to prove that most of us have criminal records. You can't be a Negro in America and not have a criminal record.
Yes, sir. You have to have something with that.
Martin Luther King has been to jail. Please. James Farmer has been to jail. Why, you can't name a black man in this country who is sick and tired of the hell that he's catching who hasn't been to jail.
Yes, sir.
Charged him with being seditious. They put Moses in jail. They put Daniel in jail. Why, you haven't got a man of God in the Bible that wasn't put to jail when they started speaking out against exploitation and oppression. They charged Jesus with sedition. Didn't they do that? They said he was against Caesar. They said he was discriminating because he told his disciples, go not the way of the Gentiles, but rather go to the lost sheep. He discriminated. Don't go near the Gentiles, go to the lost sheep. Go to the oppressed. Go to the downtrodden. Go to the exploited. Go to the people who don't know who they are, who are lost from the knowledge of themselves, and who are strangers in a land that is not theirs. Go to those people. Go to the slaves. Go to the second-class citizens. Go to the ones who are suffering the brunt of Caesar's brutality. And if Jesus were here in America today, he wouldn't be going to the white man. The white man is the oppressor. He would be going to the oppressed. He would be going to the humble. He would be going to the lowly. He would be going to the rejected and the despised. He would be going to the so-called American Negro. To have once been a criminal is no disgrace. To remain a criminal is the disgrace. I formerly was a criminal. I formerly was in prison. I'm not ashamed of that. You never can use that over my head. And that he's using the wrong stick. I don't feel that stick. I went to prison because I believed in men like Sam Yorty. I went to prison because I trusted men like Sam Yorty. I went to prison following the philosophy of men like Sam Yorty. But since I've been following the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I have been reformed, and that's more, please. That's more than Sam Yorty and Chief Parker and all these other white politicians have been able to do with the inmates in the prisons of this state. They should give Mr. Muhammad credit. They should give Mr. Muhammad credit for reforming and rehabilitating men whom they have failed to reform and rehabilitate. Mayor Yorty referred to some press report that Mr. Muhammad had once been found guilty of contributing to the delinquency of a minor. He failed to explain purposely that in 1934, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad refused to send his children to the white schools in Detroit, Michigan that were teaching you about little black Sambo. That's the minor that he contributed to the delinquency of. You see, this vicious, fork-tongued white man has been able to take lies and make you turn against those who want to help you and make others turn against you. This is the contributing to the delinquency of a minor that this mayor, or man who calls himself mayor, is talking about. In the same article, he said that the Muslims are the same people who rioted in the United Nations. Someone should pull his coat and let him know that at the present moment, there are $6 million worth of suits leveled against two of New York's leading newspapers for making the mistake of charging the Muslims as being involved in those United Nations riots. We were not involved. And if this fork-tongued man who calls himself your mayor had taken the time to find that out, he wouldn't be walking into the trap that he's letting his ignorance lead him into. And if you would take the time to read the Washington Post that came out the Sunday after that incident took place, the Washington Post pointed out on the front page that the Muslims had nothing to do with the UN riots. And they quoted, in saying so, the person who was at that time the commissioner of police in New York City. See, it's lies that the white man has spread about the Muslims to try and make you afraid of the Muslims, or to try and make you think that the Muslims were a criminal element, an uncouth element, and things that you would not like to be associated with. Also, they say that I'm just clearing these things up, and then we're going to get into what happened. They also say that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was a draft dodger. No, he wasn't. He just refused to go to the army because he was a man of peace. He was a minister of a religion of peace. He was teaching peace. So he outright refused to go to the army. That's not draft dodging. That's intelligence. Here before the grand jury. Because the coroner's jury is stacked against Negroes. The grand jury is stacked against Negroes. The press, the radio, the television, and the newspapers are stacked against Negroes. But please, the Los Angeles Police Department is stacked against Negroes. He is stacked against all Negroes, all except those whom he has appointed to high positions. The controlled press, the white press, inflames the white public against Negroes. The police are able to use it to paint the Negro community as a criminal element. The police are able to use the press to make the white public think that 90% or 99% of the Negroes in the Negro community are criminals. And once the white public is convinced that most of the Negro community is a criminal element, then this automatically paves the way for the police to move into the Negro community, exercising Gestapo tactics, stopping any black man who is on the sidewalk, whether he is guilty or whether he is innocent, whether he is well-dressed or whether he is poorly dressed.
The crazy part about, what they taught about Malcolm and what they taught about Dr. King was they narrowed them down to like slogans. Dr. King was, I have a dream, making him a dreamer. And in order to be dreaming, either you have to be asleep or sleepwalking or in your subconscious mind. And they narrowed Malcolm X down to a slogan, by any means necessary. Yet they never taught us about Malcolm X. All through my school, I was never taught about Malcolm X. And I had a watered down teaching about Dr. King, a very watered down, soft milk toast teaching about Dr. King, who was not milk toast, because any man who would go to imminent danger knowing that he can get killed is not milk toast. Because I asked brothers today, how many of you would have done what Dr. King did, going into imminent danger knowing that you can be killed? A lot of us won't do that today. A lot of us won't go into the danger he went to with our own sidearm. He went unarmed. Yet the Dr. King back in 62, 63, and 64, and 65 is different from 66 to 68. The "you better have our check" Dr. King is different from "I have a dream" Dr. King. Two different brothers.
Whether he is educated or whether he is dumb, whether he's a Christian or whether he's a Muslim, as long as he is black and a member of the Negro community, the white public thinks that the white policeman is justified in going in there and trampling on that man's civil rights and on that man's human rights. Once the police have convinced the white public that the so-called Negro community is a criminal element, they can go in and question, brutalize, murder unarmed, innocent Negroes, and the white public is gullible enough to back them up. This makes the Negro community a police state. This makes the Negro neighborhood a police state. It's the most heavily patrolled. It has more police in it than any other neighborhood, yet it has more crime in it than any other neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
How can you have more cops and more crime? Why? It shows you that the cops must be in cahoots with the criminal.
In today's time, the cop is the criminal.
The texture of the hair that God pleased, that God gave them, so much that they'll put lye on it. Do you realize now, you know, brother, lye will eat a hole in steel, and you know your head is not that hard. Who taught you, please, who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate, you should ask yourself who taught you to hate being what God gave you. We teach you to love the hair that God gave you. Here you way out in the middle of the ocean, can't swim, and you worried about someone that's in the bathtub and can't swim.
Fact, Voodoo Child, fact.
We don't steal, we don't gamble, we don't lie, and we don't cheat. And that also deprives the government of revenue Because you can't get into a whiskey bottle without getting past the government seal. You can't open a deck of cards without getting past the government seal. There's a white man makes the whiskey and then puts you in jail for getting drunk. He sells you the cards and the dice and puts you in jail when he catches you using them. So he's against us because we fix it where he can't catch you anymore. We take the dice out of your hands and the cards out of your hands and the whiskey out of your head. The most disrespected person in America is the black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the black woman. The most neglected person in America is the black woman. And as Muslims, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us to respect our women and to protect our women. And the only time a Muslim really gets real violent is when someone goes to molest his woman. We will kill you for our woman.
Yes, sir.
I'm making it plain, yes. We will kill you for our woman. We believe that if the white man will do whatever is necessary to see that his woman gets respect and protection, then you and I will never be
This is why I say that when we see these videos of our women being beaten by, I don't care who it is, what their job is, when we see these men just jumping on our women, punching them in the face, just beating them up, they are trying us as men. They're trying us as men. And for some of us to rationalize that, to say, to even ask what she did, there's nothing that she can do that can cause that. And we don't act on it. I don't care if he is a police officer or what his job is. This is the same man who responded to domestic violence calls, telling a man he shouldn't be the man. But when she is not complying with him, he beat her. When we see this, we need to act on it, and we need to do exactly what our brother Malcolm said concerning our women. Because I know if you put your hand on my wife, somebody, if your family didn't see each other for a long time, I'm going to help you with that. You put your hand on mine.
I don't have that much confidence. I don't have that much patience. And I don't have that much ignorance to... The controlled press, the white press, inflames the white public against Negroes. The police are able to use it to paint the Negro community as a criminal element. The police are able to use the press to make the white public think that 90% or 99% of the Negroes in the Negro community are criminals. And once the white public is convinced that most of the Negro community is a criminal element, then this automatically paves the way for the police to move into the Negro community, exercising Gestapo tactics, stopping any black man who is on the sidewalk, whether he is guilty or whether he is innocent, whether he is well-dressed or whether he is poorly dressed, whether he is educated or whether he is dumb, whether he's a Christian or whether he's a Muslim. As long as he is black and a member of the Negro community, the white public thinks that the white policeman is justified in going in there and trampling on that man's civil rights and on that man's human rights. Once the police have convinced the white public that the so-called Negro community is a criminal element, they can go in and question, brutalize, murder unarmed, innocent Negroes, and the white public is gullible enough to back them up. This makes the Negro community a police state. This makes the Negro neighborhood a police state. It's the most heavily patrolled. It has more police in it than any other neighborhood, yet it has more crime in it than any other neighborhood. How can you have more cops and more crime? Why? It shows you that the cops must be in cahoots with the criminal. And you worried about someone that's in the bathtub and can't swim. We don't steal, we don't gamble, we don't lie, and we don't cheat. And that also deprives the government of revenue over the head of anyone who puts his filthy hands out to put in the direction of our women.
Let me run this back.
When someone goes to molest his woman, we will kill you for our woman. I'm making it plain, yes. We will kill you for our woman. We believe that if the white man will do whatever is necessary to see that his woman gets respect and protection, then you and I will never be recognized as men until we stand up like men and place the same penalty over the head of anyone who puts his filthy hands out to put in the direction of our women. We respect them, but we want them to respect us. We think that the law should respect the Negro community. The law should protect the Negro community. The law should approach the Negro community with intelligence if it expects the Negro community to react intelligently. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us to always avoid anything that smacks of disrespect for the law. And if the police department tells the truth, they will have to admit that they have never had any experiences with Muslims that have ever been anything other than honorable unless they themselves come at us in a dishonorable way. It has no case against the Muslims. It has no case against these brothers whom they shot down. And because it has no case, it's trying to create a case. It's trying to manufacture a case. And therefore, they set up a grand jury hearing of the case so that they could hear it behind closed doors. And after hearing what we have to say, then build their particular strategy or defense against the actions that they committed on that April the 27th. So at the advice of our attorneys, we purposely, the victims, those who have been indicted, or rather those who have been arrested and are out on bond, have purposely refrained and refused from making any statement whatsoever until after the case appears in court. And when you hear their story, it will be in a public trial. We have already had experience with these private hearings behind closed doors. Anything that the white man has to do to the Muslim, he has to do it in the open. He has to do it in public, or he has to put every single one of us behind bars for the rest of our lives. When Mayor Yorty called for a government investigation of a religious group that has the highest moral standard of any group in the Negro community, Mayor Yorty was giving you an example of what Hitler did in Nazi Germany when he began to go on the rampage. We have confidence that the white public and the black public, if they hear our case, if they hear and have access to the investigation, will never be fooled by this phony setup that's stacked from the top all the way down. And if you doubt it, when you leave home tonight, when you go home tonight, look for the press. I'd like at this time to call forth these brothers who are who were arrested. The brothers who were arrested, come up here behind these chairs, please. They were suspects. This wouldn't happen in a white neighborhood. White man can walk down the street with packages on his head, packages under his arm, and packages everywhere else, and won't anybody question his right to carry those packages. But a Negro is suspect because the press makes you suspect. Yes, the white press makes Negroes suspect. What do you got? All the information you need, officer. And the officer made one stay at the rear of the car and the other go to the front of the car. And while he was taking the one to the front of the car, the polite attitude, the humble air, the submissive, intelligent, peaceful spirit that he unexpectedly found in this Negro infuriated him. And he began to, he told the brother, put down your hands. Brother was talking. He's not a criminal. A man has a right on the sidewalk to talk with his hands. Put down your hand. Don't talk with your hands. And when the brother continued to gesture with his hands, the officer grabbed his hand, twisted it around behind his back, flung him up against the car, and then that's when hell broke loose. That was when hell broke.
That's when hell was supposed to break loose. Put your hands on me. Look, just know what you're doing. It's not going to be my fault because I'm a better and skillful fighter than him. You should have had better training.
Broke loose. A struggle ensued. Shots were fired by the police and by a Negro door shaker. An alarm went out. When the alarm went out, instead of the police going to the place where the incident occurred, the police went 1 block away to the temple. When they arrived there, they got out of their cars with their guns smoking. You would have thought it was Wyatt, what his name? Wyatt Earp. I'm telling you, they came out of those cars and we have enough witnesses to hang them with their guns smoking. Chief Parker knows this, Mayor Yardy knows this, and every police official in the city knows that. They didn't fire no warning shots in the air. They fired warning shots point blank at innocent, unarmed, defenseless Negroes. As I say, 2 of the brothers were shot in the back. Another was shot in the shoulder. Another was shot, 2 of them were shot, excuse the expression, through the penis. Another was shot in.
And we know what that's about because that's why their pistol is referred to as the great equalizer. We know what that was about. We know why those brothers were shot there because, you know, that inferiority and that them being afraid that they're becoming extinct. They're afraid of that, and they act in a desperation because of it.
In the hip, and the bullet came out the other side. Brother Arthur here was shot 1/4 of an inch from his heart. Let me tell you something, and I'll tell you why you say we hate white people. We don't hate anybody. We love our own people so much they think we hate the ones who are inflicting injustice against them. man who has been shot, the bullet having passed a quarter of an inch through his heart. I'm not going to let him talk, which I think you can understand why. You should listen to the conversation of the police officers while it was going on. Two of the brothers who had been shot were lying hand in hand. The officer said they were chanting a death chant. You read that? They were saying, Allahu Akbar. What does that mean? It means that God is the greatest. It means that God is the greatest. Understand, this that the white officer called a death chant was a prayer. They were praying when they were shot down. They were saying, Allahu Akbar. And it shook the officer up because they haven't heard black people talk any kind of talk but what they taught them. And two of the brothers who were shot in the back were telling me that as they lay on the sidewalk, they were holding hands. They held hands with each other, saying Allahu Akbar. And the blood was seeping out of them where the police bullets had torn into their insides. Still they said Allahu Akbar. And the police came and kicked them in the head. Police kicked them in the head, telling them to shut up that noise, while they were laying on the sidewalk in front of our temple. Kicked them in the head. Shut up that noise. And one of them, when he was on his way to the police station in the ambulance, one of the ambulance attendants told the white cop, why don't you kill the nigger? He said, I'll tell him that he tried to get away. Why don't you kill the nigger while you got a chance? And I'll swear that he tried to get away. If he didn't say this, then I need to be put in jail, and I'll gladly go. One of them who was being taken to jail in a police car. As the ambulance sirens were coming to the place, one of the policemen said to the other, what are the ambulances rushing for? Nothing but some niggers. So he looked in and saw the Muslim brother sitting beside him, and he said, and he shut up. But after he got to the jail, the same officer that said this turned to the brother and said, I hope that you didn't get offended by what I said back there under the heat of emotion, because some of my best friends are colored. This is what he said. That's his password. Some of my best friends are colored. And I, for one, as a Muslim, believe that the white man is intelligent enough. If he were made to realize how black people really feel and how fed up we are without that old compromise and sweet talk, why, you're the one that make it hard for yourself. The white man believes you when you go to him with that old sweet talk, because you've been sweet talking him ever since he brought you here. Stop sweet talking. Tell him how you feel.
Peace. Salute to my brother Marco Power. Thanks for tapping in, good brother.
Tell him what kind of hell you've been catching, and let him know that if he's not ready to clean his house up, if he's not ready to clean his house up, he shouldn't have a house. It should catch on fire and burn down.
Now we're going to go to Malcolm X, the house nigger and the field Negro.
To understand this, you have to go back to what young brother here referred to as the house Negro and the field Negro. Back during slavery, there was two kinds of slaves. There was the house Negro and the field Negro. The house Negro, they lived in the house with master. They dressed pretty good. They ate good because they ate his food.
Salute, peace. Heru, the Duke of the Great Lakes. Thanks for tapping in, family.
What he left. They lived in the attic or the basement, but still they lived near their master. And they loved their master more than the master loved himself. They would give their life to save their master's house quicker than the master would. The house Negro, if the master said, we got a good house here, the house Negro say, yeah, we got a good house here. Whenever the master said we, he said we. That's how you can tell a house Negro. If the master's house caught on fire, the house Negro would fight harder to put the blaze out than the master would. If the master got sick, the house Negro would say, what's the matter, boss? We sick. We sick. He identified himself with his master more than his master identified with himself. And if you came to the house Negro and said, let's run away, let's escape, let's separate.
I see a lot of that today with the resistance that myself, Big Dog Philly OG, and Key Norfolk received with our series, Divorcing the System. We got a lot of resistance from doing that series, and people want to stay on the plantation, don't want to make, a system of our own that is rooted in freedom, justice, and equality. Some of us would rather stay in this wicked ass system because when it comes to freedom, there's great responsibility. And some of us don't want no complete freedom because that means that everything that we get, we have to get on our own. And it makes us, to have to get off our ass.
Separate. That house Negro would look at you and say, man, you crazy.
Myself and Talkie Talk Media, we're going to do something rooted in that word, Heru. We're going to do a stream called Lazarus, which is rooted in that word, lazy. Lazarus, lazy or us.
What you mean separate? Where is there a better house than this? Where can I wear better clothes than this? Where can I eat better food than this? That was that house Negro. In those days, he was called a house nigger. And that's what we call him today because we still got some house niggers running around here. This modern house Negro loves his master. He wants to live near him. He'll pay 3 times as much as the house is worth just to live near his master. And then brag about, I'm the only Negro out here. I'm the only one on my job. I'm the only one in this school. You nothing but a house Negro. And if someone come to you right now and say, let's separate, you say the same thing that the house Negro said on the plantation. What you mean separate? From America? This good white man? Where you gonna get a better job than you get here? I mean, this is what you say. I ain't left nothing in Africa. That's what you say. Why you left your mind in Africa. On that same plantation, there was the field Negro. The field Negro, those were the masses. There was always more Negroes in the field than there was Negroes in the house. The Negro in the field caught hell. He ate leftovers. In the house, they ate high up on the hog. The Negro in the field didn't get nothing but what was left of the insides of the hog. They call them chitlins nowadays. In those days, they call them what they were, guts. That's what you were, a gut eater. And some of you are all still gut eaters. The field Negro was beaten from morning till night. He lived in a shack, in a hut. He wore cast-off clothes, and he hated his master. I say he hated his master. He was intelligent. That house Negro loved his master. But that field Negro, remember, they were in the majority, and they hated his master. When the house caught on fire, he didn't try and put it out. That field Negro prayed for a wind, for a breeze. When the master got sick, the field Negro prayed that he died. If someone come to the field Negro and said, let's separate, let's run, he didn't say, where are we going? He said, any place is better than here. You got field Negroes in America today. I'm a field Negro. The masses are the field Negroes. When they see this man's house on fire, you don't hear these little Negroes talking about our government is in trouble. They say the government is in trouble. Imagine a Negro, our government. I even heard one say our astronauts. They won't even let him near the plant. And our astronauts, our Navy, that's a Negro that's out of his mind. That's a Negro that's out of his mind. Just as the slave master in that day used Tom, the house Negro, to keep the field Negroes in check, the same old slave master today has Negroes who are nothing but modern Uncle Toms, 20th century Uncle Toms, to keep you and me in check, keep us under control, keep us passive and peaceful and nonviolent. That's Tom making you nonviolent. It's like when you go to the dentist and the man is going to take your tooth. You're going to fight him when he starts pulling. So they squirt some stuff in your jaw called Novocaine to make you think they're not doing anything to you. So you sit there, and because you got all that Novocaine in your jaw, you suffer peacefully.
Bad man. Bad man.
Blood running all down your jaw. And you don't know what's happening because someone has taught you to suffer peacefully. The white man do the same thing to you in the street. When he gonna want to put knots on your head and take advantage of you and don't have to be afraid of you fighting back, to keep you from fighting back, he get these old religious Uncle Toms to teach you and me. They're just like Novocaine, suffer peacefully. Don't stop suffering, just suffer peacefully. As Reverend Clee pointed out, let your blood flow in the streets. This is a shame. And you know he's a Christian preacher. If it's a shame to him, you know what it is to me. There's nothing in our book, the Quran, as you call it, Quran, teaches us to suffer peacefully. Our religion teaches us to be intelligent, be peaceful, be courteous, obey the law, respect everyone. But if someone puts his hand on you, send them to the cemetery.
You can't be more fair than that, because we are taught to not be the aggressor, but fight with those who fight against us. And you can't be more fair than that, that no one has to worry about you harming them. But if you put your hands on one of us, we send you to the cemetery. That's fair, completely.
That's a good religion. In fact, that's that old-time religion. That's the one that Ma and Pa used to talk about. An eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth, and a head for a head, and a life for a life. That's a good religion. And then anybody, no one resents that kind of religion being taught but a wolf who intends to make you his meal. This is the way it is with the white man in America. He's a wolf, and you a sheep. Anytime a shepherd, a pastor, teach you and me not to run from the white man, and at the same time teachers don't fight the white man, he's a traitor to you and me. Don't lay down our life all by itself. No. Preserve your life. It's the best thing you got. And if you got to give it up, let it be even Stephen. The slave master took Tom and dressed him well and fed him well and even gave him a little education. Gave him a long coat and a top hat and made all the other slaves look up to him. Then he used Tom to control them. The same strategy that was used in those days is
That would be called today the head nigger in charge. That's what it's called today.
used today by the same white man. He take a Negro, so-called Negro, and make him prominent.
A lot of us are so proud to be the head nigger in charge.
Build him up, publicize him, make him a celebrity, and then he becomes a spokesman for Negroes and a Negro leader. I would like to just mention one thing else quickly, and that is the method that the white man uses, how the white man uses these big guns or Negro leaders against the Black Revolution. They're not a part of the Black Revolution. They're used against the Black Revolution. When Martin Luther King failed to desegregate Albany, Georgia, the civil rights struggle in America reached its low point. King became bankrupt almost as a leader. Plus, even financially, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference was in financial trouble. Plus, it was in trouble, period.
Yes, sir, Brother Marco Power. Today would have been his 99th birthday. This is exactly why I'm doing this, paying homage to the elder, the ancestor, Brother Malcolm X. Today would have been his 99th birthday.
With the people when they failed to desegregate Albany, Georgia. Other Negro civil rights leaders of so-called national stature became fallen idols. As they became fallen idols, began to lose their prestige and influence, local Negro leaders began to stir up the masses. In Cambridge, Maryland, Gloria Richardson. In Danville, Virginia, and other parts of the country, local leaders begin to stir up our people at the grassroots level. This was never done by these Negroes whom you recognize of national stature. They controlled you, but they never incited you or excited you. They controlled you, they contained you. They kept you on the plantation. As soon as King failed in Birmingham, Negroes took to the streets. King got out and went out to California to a big rally and raised about, I don't know how many thousands of dollars. Come to Detroit and had a march and raised some more thousands of dollars. And recall, right after that, Wilkins attacked King, accused King and the Corps of starting trouble everywhere and then making the NAACP get them out of jail and spend a lot of money, and then they accuse King and Core of raising all the money and not paying it back. This happened. I got it in documented evidence in the newspaper. Roy started attacking King, and King started attacking Roy, and Farmer started attacking both.
Because them niggas were sellouts. They sold Dr. King out. Everybody around Dr. King sold him out, including Messy Jesse Jackson, sold Dr. King out to the point, if you look on the balcony, the targets wore ties and the friendlies wore those mock neck shirts. Look at the balcony where Dr. King was assassinated at. The one supposed to got hit was the one who's wearing the ties. And Jesse Jackson made sure he put that mock neck on that day. Him and Reverend Cowles and all of them sold Dr. King out.
Both of them. And as these Negroes of national stature begin to attack each other, they begin to lose their control of the Negro masses. And Negroes was out there in the streets. They was talking about, we're going to march on Washington. By the way, and right at that time, Birmingham had exploded, and the Negroes in Birmingham, remember, they also exploded. They began to stab the crackers in the back and bust them upside the head. Yes, they did. That's when Kennedy sent in the troops down in Birmingham. So, and right after that, Kennedy got on the television and said, this is a moral issue. That's when he said he's going to put out a civil rights bill. And when he mentioned civil rights bill and the Southern crackers started talking about they were going to boycott it or filibuster, then the Negroes started talking about what? We're going to march on Washington, march on the Senate, march on the White House, march on the Congress, and tie it up, bring it to a halt. Don't let the government proceed. They even said they was going to go out to the airport and lay down on the runway and don't let no airplanes land. I'm telling you what they said. That was revolution. That was revolution. That was the Black Revolution. It was the grassroots out there in the street. Scared the white man to death. Scared the white power structure in Washington, D.C. to death. I was there. When they found out that this black steamroller was going to come down on the Capitol, they called in Wilkins. They called in Randolph. They called in these national Negro leaders that you respect and told them, call it off. Kennedy said, look, you all letting this thing go too far. And old Tom said, boss, I can't stop it because I didn't start it. I'm telling you what they said. They said, I'm not even in it, much less at the head of it. They said, these Negroes are doing things on their own. They're running ahead of us. And that old shrewd fox, he said, well, if you all aren't in it, I'll put you in it. I'll put you at the head of it. I'll endorse it. I'll welcome it. I'll help it. I'll join it. A matter of hours went by. They had a meeting at the Carlisle Hotel in New York City. The Carlisle Hotel is owned by the Kennedy family. That's the hotel Kennedy spent the night at 2 nights ago. Belongs to his family. A philanthropic society headed by a white man named Stephen Currier called all the top civil rights leaders together at the Carlisle Hotel and told them that by you all fighting each other, you're destroying the civil rights movement. And since you're fighting over money from white liberals, let us set up what's known as the Council for United
Civil Rights Movement was nothing but, they were full of, what, the Civil Rights Movement. Fighting and bickering. That's what's happening today. A lot of us say we want the same thing for our people, but we can't even come together to work together on the same accord for the same goal. So, nothing's changed. Again, 1 step forward, 2 step back, no progress.
Civil rights leadership. Let's form this council, and all the civil rights organizations will belong to it. And we'll use it for fundraising purposes. Let me show you how tricky the white man is. And as soon as they got it formed, they elected.
You know, that's a tactic that this wicked demon enemy of ours always do. When they see us going at each other, you know, going back and forth, they will come in and serve as the mediator and, you know, try to solve the problems or even say they solve the problem so they could potentially rule us both. That's an old trick.
Whitney Young as the chairman, and who you think became the co-chairman? Stephen Currier, the white man, a millionaire.
Big facts, Chairman Walker. Big facts, the big six. Exactly.
Powell was talking about it down at the Cobo today. This is what he was talking about. Powell knows it happened. Randolph knows it happened. Wilkins knows it happened. King knows it happened. Every one of that so-called big six, they know what happened.
You just said it.
Once they formed it with the white man over it, he promised them and gave them $800,000 to split up between the big six, and told them that after the march was over, they'd give them $700,000 more, $1.5 million split up between leaders that you've been following, going to jail for, crying crocodile tears for, and they've nothing but Frank James and Jesse James and brothers. Soon as
I want to take a commercial break and have a word from my sponsor.
Get your copy of Fire. It's definitely a must-read. If you enjoy Hood books, this one is it. Just like the title of the book, it's officially Fire. Get it on Amazon, paperback or Kindle.
The once goal-driven, ambitious Sapphire turns to the street life after the sudden death of her big brother Dre. Dre's best friend Devontae tries to honor his homeboy's last request of looking out for his baby sister. A rebellious Sapphire makes it very difficult for Devontae to carry out his promise.
they got the setup organized, the white men made available to them top public relations experts, opened the news media across the country at their disposal, and then they begin to project these big six as the leaders of the march. Originally, they weren't even in the march. You was talking this march talk on Hastings Street. Is Hastings Street still here? On Hastings Street. You was talking the march talk on Lenox Avenue and down on, Fillmore Street.
That's what they do. They will send agents in to organize us. When they see us organizing, they'll send their people in to infiltrate our organizations and organize us. And agents have risen to official positions in our organization. All along, they was working for those people.
In Central Avenue, and 42nd Street, and 63rd Street, that's where the march talk was being talked. But the white man put the big six ahead of it, made them the march. They became the march. They took it over. And the first move they made after they took it over, they invited Walter Reuther, a white man. They invited a priest, a rabbi, and an old white preacher. Yes, an old white preacher. The same white element that put Kennedy in power, labor, the Catholics, the Jews, and liberal Protestants. Same clique that put Kennedy in power joined the March on Washington. It's just like when you got some coffee that's too black, which means it's too strong. What you do, you integrate it with cream. You make it weak. If you pour too much cream in, you won't even know you ever had coffee.
Yes, sir.
It used to be hot, it becomes cool. It used to be strong, it becomes weak. It used to wake you up, now it'll put you to sleep. This is what they did with the March on Washington. They joined it. They didn't
It's a bad man right here, Marco Power. Malcolm's a bad man, brother.
integrate it, they infiltrated it. They joined it, became a part of it, took it over. And as they took it over, it lost its militancy. They ceased to be angry. They ceased to be hot. They ceased to be uncompromising. Why, it even ceased to be a march. It became a picnic, a circus.
Pick a nigga to lead a picnic.
Nothing but a circus with clowns and all. You had one right here in Detroit. I saw it on television with clowns leading it, white clowns and black clowns. I know you don't like what I'm saying, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because I can prove what I'm saying. If you think I'm telling you wrong, you bring me Martin Luther King and A. Philip Randolph and James Farmer and those other three, and see if they'll deny it over the microphone. No, it was a sellout. It was a takeover. When James Baldwin came in from Paris, they wouldn't let him talk because they couldn't make him go by the script. Burt Lancaster read the speech that Baldwin was supposed to make. They wouldn't let Baldwin get up there because they know Baldwin liable to say anything. They controlled it so tight, they told those Negroes what time to hit town, how to come, where to stop, what sign to carry, what song to sing, what speech they could make and what speech they couldn't make, and then told them to get out of town by sundown. And every one of those Toms were out of town by sundown. Now, I know you don't like my saying this, but I can back it up. It was a circus, a performance. It beat anything Hollywood could ever do. The performance of the year. Luther and those other three devils should get a Academy Award for the best actors because they acted like they really loved Negroes and fooled a whole lot of Negroes. And the 6 Negroes.
I hope that you all enjoyed this presentation. Again, I do this for our people. Malcolm X was a brother who deserved our homage. He deserved our respect. He deserved our gratitude because he stood and he not only spoke on our behalf, he acted on our behalf. And I would like to thank all the brothers and sisters for joining me this evening in paying homage to our brother, our elder, our ancestor, freedom fighter, Brother Malcolm X. Malcolm X, live. Until next time, this is your brother Nasir, and this is The Enemy's Public. Until next time, family, peace.